Pat Nevin was a unique footballer and is now a thoughtful, reflective, fun media commentator. He's also a music obsessive and a man in possession of the best Doug Rugby anecdote ever. And if you don't know who Doug Rugby was, I'm coming after you. So you can guess, it was only a matter of time until he joined us as a guest on the big interview. We spent a brilliant couple of hours in Pat's company covering a great deal. Why John Terry is misunderstood, in certain senses at least. How good Eden Hazard can become, why he hasn't already, why the Irish sports media is on another level altogether, and how Pat stood up to racists on the terraces during his career. John Peel gets more than a mention, deservedly, as does Pat's passion for DJing. This interview was recorded in the function room of an outstanding Edinburgh pub. Thanks to Sean and all the staff of the St Andrews Brewing Company at a house in Broughton Street Lane in Edinburgh, which set the perfect indie tone for a memorable big interview. I was startled to hear a perspective that I don't have as much grip on, but you talked about a guy who has obviously got you transfixed and who's now moved into management. You talked about John Terry. Mm-hmm. And in my small number of interactions with him one-on-one, I've seen players around the Chelsea training ground go, oh God, it's just John. And they obviously have a mixture of fear and awe and love. Mm-hmm. And in the interviews I've done with him one-on-one, he rips up any stereotypes you bring into the room, because there are certain people who are just commanding. I don't know if it's what they transmit or how the haircut is, how the eyes are, what the words are, I don't know. But like, in terms of listening to somebody communicate back, he's one of the most riveting people I've ever come around. And you extrapolate from that, don't you? If you've never had the gift to play professional football like you, we all kind of go, well, what if I was playing with that guy? And my judgment is that it would have been one hell of an experience being led by or playing alongside John Terry. And it seems you're quite struck by him as an individual, not just as a footballer.
Yeah, I hate falling for the tropes that I'm fed, be it media, be it anyone.
Yeah.
And you make a decision about somebody before you meet them. Because many people have done that about me. And then they meet me and they go, oh, you're not really like that at all. But they've decided you are. I mean, you only need to go on social media and you find that out. But I had made my decision about John Terry before I ever met him. Because the things he'd done wrong, which he has done plenty of things wrong. And certain specific things are almost anathema to me as a human being. You know, and I met him and I thought, God, he's so disarming. That's extraordinary. And I spoke to him a few times, not a huge amount of times. And just thought, I'm not finding any weakness here. And I immediately started thinking, actually, you're a sociopath. Because everybody is utterly, and you used the word awe before I did. Everyone is slightly in awe of you. And it's not necessarily actually because of these caps or what he's won. It's actually not that. It's something else. It's the personality. And he's given off. Now, I've met one or two. We mentioned earlier on, we were chatting beforehand about Jock Stein, obviously one of those types of people. And there are very, very few of them around. Well, very few that I'm kind of taken by anyway, to that level. So I started watching them closer. So not spending time speaking, but being in the company that he was in and watching him and thinking, right, is this an act? Is this you manipulating people? And he didn't seem to be doing it for anyone else. He was just being who he was. And it's an extraordinary reaction. So if you ask someone like Didier Drogba or Lampard or Mourinho or anything, they'll all say the same.
Impressive, strong, powerful, self-willed men, and yet they're impacted similarly.
They're going, wow, he's just an incredible person. And the classic old line, you would almost do anything for them. You know, now I don't know if I would have been like that playing with him, but I'm quite struck by the intelligence. It's a different type of intelligence, isn't it? The type of intelligence that you have dealing with people. And he's extraordinary at that. So when I looked at all the people coming through and thought, well, who would be a good manager? You know, and there's loads of them. There's from Giggsy and Rio and Frank and all the rest of it. I would put him at the top of the ones that's most likely. Not definite. Absolutely nobody gets a definite to succeed in management because it's a stupid game. And you need to get the right time, the right club, and the right situation as well. But if I'd put money on anyone, it would be him, because I would suspect that he would get, and I hate cliches, but he would get that dressing room and those players doing everything. And there's a big thing about any management. It's not football. I mean, one of the things I studied before I began football was management, is maximising the potential of the people that are working under you. If you can do that, you can do no more. I have a massive suspicion that he can do that as good as anyone.
Automatically, probably. I mean, albeit that he is analytical, I think, particularly, because I think he's very streetwise. That isn't in any way pejorative, I don't think. I think London its personality was a very streetwise city, one where you had to be quite sharp and quick, but people around you, not just about yourself, in which to survive. And I think he has that, but also I think that when you've got, I don't know what presence is or how you radiate intensity, but he does do both of those things, and I can't explain it, but it is the truth, I think.
You're dancing around being able to say it's impossible to tell, because if there's a simple way of telling it, people would copy it or do it or affect it. And is it Burns? Was it? Not Rabbit, the other one, George, who said, if you can fake sincerity, you've got it made. To be fair, it's just something special. It's something other, and I'm very hugely impressed with that side. That doesn't mean you're impressed with every single part of a person's personality. In the world that we live in just now, that's usually picked up as a quote, and people then dig you back in. But I don't care.
No.
I remember at the time, John was going through a really bad time with some of the sort of front page stories, and I went to a company and said, "Look, I want to make a documentary about him, and I want to put a different spin on it." What do you mean spin? I said, "I just want to tell the truth."
Yeah.
And they absolutely weren't doing it. I said, "Well, wouldn't you rather have the truth?"
Out of fear that they might be perceived in a certain way.
Exactly.
But what's happened to articulacy and freedom of speech and democracy? That's a tiny little, Well,
that's you're talking that
microcosm
that may have been 7, 8, 9 years ago, and that's the case 7, 8, 9 years ago. I'm saying it's a lot worse.
The Met Police not investigating election fraud because of politically sensitive times.
Exactly. So I've kind of, when I have any of my falls, that I will have with things that I will say.
By being honest.
Because I will say something honest. I said something honest the other day on radio, which got me tons of abuse in various places.
Go on.
And I feel so comfortable with it. It's a really nice feeling. There was a game, Spurs were playing against Cardiff, I was at that game. And there was a sending off, I don't know if you saw it was last Saturday night. One of the Cardiff players made a tackle from behind, but put his leg over the top, and it looked horrible. To which I said, yeah, that's a booking, but he gets sent off, and it's a bit harsh because the opprobrium that was raining down on me, I said, but he wasn't trying to hurt him. He was just basically bringing him down. It looked ungainly, clumsy, and they abused you. How can you think that? Well, I'll tell you how without being arrogant. I've probably had as many tackles as anybody around, anyone you get around just now, 800 professional games, and the type of player who would get that tackle. That's not the one I was worried about. That's not the one I was, it was going to injure me badly. That would get me annoyed.
The one where you knew either in advance or once it's impacted that somebody was out to do you.
Yes, you actually knew it before it came, the one that was trying to do that, and that was more common then than it is now. But that was not a tackle that was out to hurt. Now, he could have got hurt if he'd have felt. Salah fell in an odd way in the Champions League final. But that wasn't a deliberate attempt to go and dislocate his soldier, for God's sake. Yeah. The madness of people's suggestion of that.
Although he's a brutal tough nut, he's been portrayed as
madness.
Hess or Himmler. This evil scheme that he's been planning for weeks, and he's falling just as I wanted him to. There's the pop I was waiting for.
It was laughable. It was actually laughable hearing people saying that. And I'm going, there isn't a human being in the world that is capable of doing that and making that happen. Don't be daft. So when you're on and if you're doing an analysis or something, I have to be honest. And even when I'm saying it sometimes, I know I'm saying it and I know the reaction it's going to get.
Yeah.
And some people think, you're just saying that for a reaction. In that case, no, I will back it up.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now, that I will continue to say whatever I feel I want to say, but I will not say it for pure effect.
No.
And that's the other side of it. In things that I've talked on media, television, radio, whatever, I'll quite often be expected to say, he should be sacked. I won't say that. I'll say, look, here are the circumstances. There are a lot of circumstances. Again, a lot of chat a while back about Gordon Strachan you mentioned this, being the Scotland manager, and he didn't get Scotland to the Euros and World Cups, etc. And I'm looking at it thinking, he's maximising the potential of all those players. Yeah. Didn't get done very well in Scotland. I said, it doesn't matter. If you get rid of him, you better have somebody that's better. and Big Eck, good friend of mine. But I don't know if he's better than that Gordon. In fact, I'm convinced he's not.
Or find 6 or 7 new good players that don't exist.
Exactly, maximising the potential of what he's got. So that's all you can do. And sometimes it's not an easy headline, that is it? Is it an easy headline as sack him?
I'm really glad that somebody's walking into the Gale, because it like all monosodium glutamate, it becomes addictive. So once you get into a cycle of people wanting to hear, yes, sack him, it's what you say, because it is quite addictive to say, okay, let's move on, let's get rid of that subject and let's move on to the next subject, whether it's for the right reasons, whether it will have the right effect or not. And also, just like at the guillotine, there's a natural, we all have a natural bloodlust, sadly.
Not me. Actually, I've never had, but the other side of it I see, which I've worked in the media for quite a long time now, is that I know some of the guys are clever enough and cute enough to know that that's what sells them. And I mean some ex-players as well, you've seen it yourself. And that's perfectly reasonable, it's a game. It's not for me, it's not a game, but for others it's a game, and it's a way of earning a living. And that's I used to despise that. I don't anymore. I just see it's a game. There was a guy many years ago called Jimmy Sanderson in Scotland used to do it.
You're at the game, caller.
It's no different now. It's exactly the same, only a different version.
Jimmy, the first shock jock in Scotland.
Exactly.
Is that right?
So when you've seen it once, you're a bit dim if you can't see it happening again. So I find it all very interesting. I find the whole media circus is the wrong word, but the whole way that the media runs quite interesting. Again, we've talked in the past about how Irish media and sports very different from British media and sport.
Because we both admire them, can we just say the guys who produce and talk on Off the Ball and News Talk, they're worth mentioning because they are that good. So I'll
say that apart from me on a Monday night, because I do every Monday night. But they are fish. No, but
they're some of the excellent workers in the Irish sports media, because we would include second captains too. But we both think well of those guys.
Here's a thought though. So the next question is, which don't want to take your questions away, why? And I asked somebody and I got a great answer once. Let me throw this one at you, or anyone listening. You look at British media, and not all of it, don't abuse all, because there's some very good journals out there. Many I hugely respect and I do read, but maybe less so than maybe times gone past, and it's easier to do the shock jock stuff a little bit. But if you go to Ireland, there is some shock jockey stuff, but you will get depth, and you will get intelligence, and you will get knowledge, and they will not apologise for it. I remember asking one of the guys, why is it that there is, you know it and I know it, there's a cultural difference.
Yeah.
Why is it? And somebody said brilliantly to me once, it's your base newspaper. How do you mean? I said, well, if you say what is the newspaper of the UK that everybody reads?
Evening Express in Aberdeen, obviously. Do we have to say it out loud?
You have to say it out loud. It's sad, but it's true.
There's two villains of my lifetime. There's two villains. The Sun is one, and now the Mail is the other.
Right, so the Sun's the one. Right, so that is the base. Right, now it's not a newspaper I happen to read or get or anything, but I know they're the base of. When I say base, I mean that's where the culture comes from, because it's so big in the culture. Where's the base in Ireland?
I'd say the Times.
Exactly. Your first answer gives it away every time.
The Indies make ground too.
Well, but that's the base. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So the thinking comes from
Quality.
there. The idea comes from there, and it doesn't give you all the answer to it, but it gives you where
given that we're only exchanging ideas, what I've found, and I've spent a lot of time watching friends of mine play sport to a high level, or going there and watching sport, or working with the broadcasters that you're talking about. One of the things that I always say to them, and these two ideas might tessellate. Apart from Australia or Australians, I've never met an audience in any country that has a greater thirst for all sports, whether it be their sport or not, than in Ireland. I've gone and worked in countries, or I know people from countries where there'll be a basket full of 3 or 4 or 5 sports that are extremely important and that country might be knowledgeable about. But when you go across Ireland, they tend to have I think a greater part of that community is still playing sport and living a clubhouse idea, whether it be GAA or football or rugby. You get generations of families and neighbours all going down the clubhouse, seeing a game of an afternoon, going and watching competitive sport, maybe helping develop, because the local community has whether it be hurling or GA football or soccer or rugby or golf or whatever what you want. So they're all more deeply woven into the idea of what's sport for, how do you support it, who's any good. A young one's coming through. And they're much more diverse than our culture, I think, and that's helpful.
And part of the reason is where their base is. It's a wider one. I don't know of the full reason. Somebody will do a study into it once. But I go over there for quite a few years. I was doing Satanto over there. I was flying over there once a week. As I said, doing news talk. And to be fair, you'll say something sometimes. You'll be in one of the studios, off air, and you'll say, "What happened in the golf last week?" And they'll say, "Oh, Harrington, you've seen the 13th. He had that shot, and he should have faded it." And you're going, it was just a vague question.
Aye, he was okay.
And you get this knowledge coming from everywhere, and it's a sport picked out there. Anyway, so I think we're both big fans, and I'm certainly a big fan, and anytime I'm asked to do it, but it's to take nothing away from different types of journalism. And again, I want to always bring it back to him. I don't say what's good or bad. I say what interests me, and I've very much grown into that. I'm taught by my wife to have an opinion and believe in it, but not there is no more than one right.
Present a case. I'll do that. I think this is right. When we've been talking about John Terry, is he effectively just a modern De Grootby? This is not a visual medium, but I am showing Pat. Picture taken from the 1983 Cup Winners' Cup final is, I think Santillana is trying to lecture Big Duke with a finger wagging at him, and Duke's picking the other player up.
I can give you 20 minutes on Doogie.
Let's do that.
Doogie,
for good or bad?
No, not very, very quick.
Huntley legend.
Comes down to Chelsea when I'm there, and he's replacing an absolute legend, Joey Jones, who the fans love more than anyone else. And Big Duke's not always the
Joey was born with tattoos, wasn't he?
Yeah, but all the fist pumps and the rest before fist pumps were a thing. And Dougie comes in, and of course he's rough and ready. We understand that. So he's come down, and being Scottish, we want the Scottish guys to do well. First training session, the ball's bounced and gone up. So I need to go for the header with Dougie. So I got to put my shoulder in to head him. Honestly, it was like heading a wall. Ouch! You banged your shoulder off him and you fell down again, and he just looked at you as if to say, "What was that all about?" Made of a different material than most of us, and there's a few guys like that, but the sweetest, nicest guy in the world off the pitch as well. And he did the nicest thing with me. He was there before we go into that. 83, round about that time, he played in a cup final against Rangers, I believe.
Immediately after that game.
Derek Johnson.
No, 79, where he
sent off.
Derek has admitted that he swindled the ref.
Yeah, swindled.
Pretended he'd been butted or whatever.
So Dougie comes down. Derek Johnson was at Chelsea at the time.
Of course he was, aye.
Same dressing room, year, never spoke a word. Never said a word to each other. How can you do that? How can you sit in this small area?
I knew Dougie had Sicilian blood in him. I've always said he was from Sicily.
Nothing. And Big Derek was a funny bloke, and he would try and rewind up. Nothing. Complete and utter dead eyes. But I love Dougie. He did this one great favour to me once. At the end of one season, my flat rental had run out. Changed days, eh? Player of the year at Chelsea, I was on like 180 quid a week. Things have changed just
a week. And you know where to stay?
I had nowhere to live. And my rent had run out 2 weeks before I went back up north, for the summer and come back down again. And Dougie said, "Oh, come and stay with me and my wife." And I went and stayed with Dougie in this lovely family setting, which is considered the life I was having at the time. It was weird. And it was lovely, and he took care of us. And I said, "Look, as a favour, mate, I'll take you out one of my nights out." And this was the very early days, which would years later would have been called raves. But then they were called... exactly, that shocked you. But then they were called...
It's a great thing about questions. You never know what kind of answer. If you're going to try and sell to me that you took Dougie to be
you're right, it's going to be worse. It's going to get a lot worse. So I said, like, come out with me. And it was called a warehouse party, right? So I've driven Dougie down to the south of Brixton, in the middle of nowhere. And we turned up there, and there was people like, if you remember a time like Boy George or Marilyn or, where people were dressed very strangely. Some people were dressed in 18th century outfits. I remember one woman walking by with completely topless with an 18th century. I mean, weird, mad people, right? I remember, and you brought your own beer or whatever, and there was videos on the wall which were, some of them were pornographic. There's Dougie standing in the middle of it all, with a beer, wearing his Chelsea kit. He's actually wearing the full tracksuit, a shocking blue tracksuit, and I'm sitting there like hipster kind of. And I go, this is, if only I could show people this. If only I had cameras to kind of explain it to people. And then Big Dougie's first line after about 10 minutes, they said, what do you think, Dougie? And I went, didn't you know this sort of thing existed? It was just, I love Dougie. And the nice thing, you put a picture in front of me.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing about it, and the thing I loved about being involved in football, and being involved in football, I was such an outsider within it, that things that other people would find normal, I found extremely strange. So you could almost put any player there, and I'll tell you a story about the weirdness of it, which from their perspective was perfectly normal how they behaved, and from my perspective as an outsider was, my nickname at the time was Weirdo with the players, and I'm thinking, no, I'm the normal one. You're all weird. And I was absolutely convinced about it. But he was a great guy, Dougie.
Well, without making that, I can't let that go, without necessarily making that point personal to anybody who was weird in your experience, unless you want to, because let open.
By the way, weird's not bad.
No.
It's an interesting game.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly. Weird's okay.
You're selling snow to the Eskimos there.
Okay,
I agree. One of the things that we do about this, although this is our Pat Nevin episode, it's also a real privilege to be able to open the curtains of the football world a little bit to people. So, tell the first anecdote that comes to your mind about they're the weird ones, not me.
Right, I'll tell you a really stupid, simple one, right? So, dead simple one, I'm sure I've told before. It's just the first one that comes to my mind. I read a lot. I was very into serious literature, like Camus, as you do when you're younger. And, but of course, in the team bus, this looks weird. And I'm reading one day the short stories of Anton Chekhov on the bus, as you do. And one of the players, Dale Jasper, walks back up and says, "Oh, Patsy, I know one of your authors." And I went, and I went, "Really? Well, sit down." He sat down. And he goes, "That's really, Jack? I'm amazed." And he goes, "Yeah, but I didn't know you were a Trekkie, Pat." And I went, "Not that Chekhov. No, different Chekhov, Dale." Because I would have all these things happening all the time, and I'd be looking around for can I share this with somebody? And it always happened that I would find myself in what I thought was a normality. Now the serious ones, the more serious ones were, the black players, the abuse that they were getting at the time, and I would speak out about it, and the stuff that would happen about that, and so that became a massive part of my life when I was at Chelsea as well. But I had been anyway as a student, going to marches and doing free Mandela stuff and all that, long before it became a thing.
In Glasgow, when you were at what
Glasgow
became
Tech.
Glasgow, Caledonia was Glasgow Tech, but you were doing that because that was what you believed morally. You weren't surrounded by a huge number of black men or women, I suppose.
No, there wasn't. You think it? I don't know if there was.
You were acting because you felt that these were things that you really believed in. Then suddenly you're thrown right into the middle of it, where you're seeing people suffer exactly what it was you were protesting against.
And I think, and of course, at the time I'd say, look, no, you need to speak up about this, and everyone around saying, no, you don't do that. It's you let the club deal with that. And I'm saying, no, don't be stupid. Now, 10 years on, 20 years, 30 years on, of course it looks obvious what I'm doing, but I'm the weirdo, and you shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't make me any different, cleverer than anyone else. It just thinks that's the culture that was brought up in. I don't know the reasons for it, other than that my family were like that. We were political in a way that we care for others, and the oldest form of the word socialism, the oldest form would be social to people around you. And if you can help, you can help. And when I found that it could have an effect, and I never actually brought up the racism stuff ever, unless it was brought up first. That's an odd thing to say, but it's true. My idea is you're going to have some people that have those beliefs, and you're going to have those, hey, I don't agree with them, but hey, that's life. But if you bring them into my place of work, I will bring my views back on you, and I will bring them on heavy. And that's where it started. And as soon as I walked into it and started talking about it, I think people thought, you're doing it for effect. Or I don't know what people thought.
You're
I think
you're an agitator. I think people would.
Yeah, that's
people often put you down as somebody who's just looking for trouble or to project themselves.
And
historically, that's what people have tried to put you down.
It couldn't be the further from the truth. It's actually trying to be exactly the opposite of that. Is bringing people together as opposed to dragging people apart. And in the end, it's certainly improved over the years, and all the campaigns that we started grew and grew and grew, and it was great. Was it difficult or hard then? I presume that it would not have been unusual for black players to say stop making a fuss. Nothing. No, never said no. No, the reaction I got from the lads around was always positive, and to this day.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'd love to say it now because I've never said it before. Can I say? I was doing a recent BAME thing down in Hammersmith. I was asked to go along, and we spoke out, and it was 7 people on the dais at the top. I'm allowed to say that? I say wrong words sometimes. No, okay. Right, top table.
Yeah.
Right. See, I used to say things like that in football all the time. Use a word that they didn't know, and every time everyone would just stop and turn around. No, it's a normal word.
That dueling banjos moment.
Honestly, remind me. Come back to one for that in a minute. And I was the only white guy in the panel. I can remember thinking I was so honoured. I felt so honoured to be there. But as I've went along, there's a lot of guys in the media, black players from my time, and they never come up and say, "Well done, Pat. Thanks, Pat." But I can see in their faces, and I can see them. They are different than me. I get the different handshake. Mm-hmm. I get you are acceptable. Yeah, and it's never actually. I can't actually remember. It's been said sometimes I was given a doctorate for goodness sake, for that sort of work. A couple of them actually. But in actual fact, black players, it's a kind of nod,
nice.
And that's as good as anything.
Respect.
It's a brilliant feeling. I never had a negative word, to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or you've done enough, or can you step back? It's our turn now. Nothing. And before we go to dueling banjos, was there ever a stage at which, because to some extent you've maintained a huge amount of affection for Chelsea. Oh, yeah.
And yet there must have been times as a young socialist in the purest sense of the word, radical, talented, that you must have looked around at some of the fan behaviour or the culture and the ideas of the people who seem to love Chelsea then, and it never made you feel uncomfortable or repulsed, or that there's a doubt about whether you were in the right place? No, because I knew what level of minority they were, and that was a good thing. Because being the type of person I was closer to fans than probably most, because I was kind of a fan myself. I was a Mad King Celtic fan at that time, and the way they followed the team was incredible. The people that were the headhunters, the NF supporters, the ones that were getting into hooligan battles, I'm pretty convinced they didn't give a stuff about football. They weren't interested, and I'd go and talk to them sometimes. Say, afterwards they would say, "Oh, Pat," and you could tell by the haircut, the clothes, what they were. Yeah. And I'd say, "What did you think of the game?" Always my first question. Often the answer was, "Oh, we didn't go in." And I'm thinking, you're not Chelsea supporters. No. You're using Chelsea Football Club to forward your thoughts and your ideals, which I disagree with completely. And I've got many people who are still very, very close friends, who were Chelsea fans at the time, who are exactly from the same position as me, politically. So it was a big minority, bigger than most. Very rational. I appreciate that. It's a good answer. And when I had to speak out, there was twice, infamously or famously. Once at Crystal Palace, where I refused to talk to the press after scoring the winning goal back in '84. Not talking. Just want to see how disgusted I was for some of the Chelsea fans, alleged Chelsea fans who booed our black player when he came on. That's all I'm saying. Disgusted, and went away. So, and then the reaction in the game after that was, Paul Carnevale got cheered before all of us, and you're thinking, that's the answer. That is the answer there. Yeah. And you used a phrase. When I saw that you could achieve things by saying or doing that, it's a small one, but it's an important one. Big phrase. Oh, it's a big phrase, and I've lived by that, and that's really. I'm happy you picked up on that, because I've been asked to be involved in many campaigns for many different things over the years. You could probably imagine,
And people are quite surprised how often I say no. I will have it. If I think I can have an effect, I will help. If I'm doing it to make me look good, no, I'm not going to do anything. You've got better people to do it. You people do it for, a reason that can be effective. I love Billy Braggs. I got to know Billy over the years and loved Billy. But I remember somebody saying to me, there was a campaign for something going on and Billy's name wasn't on it. And somebody said, must be something wrong with that. Billy's name's not on it. And I thought, I don't want that to happen to me. My name isn't big, but I want to use it when it's usable. So when it
have an effect. Make it worthwhile.
And I've really stuck by that over the years.
What did I remind you of with my?
Oh, brilliant! I remember often in games you'd say something, but you just say the words that came to you. So I was playing near the end of my career, playing for Tranmere, setting up the wall. So the wall set up, 20 yards out. This free kick, really tense time. The wall set up. I'm on the side of the wall. I'm the guy charging the ball, but I'm round at the side that way. I'm close and the referee's there, and I'm 10 yards away, but I'm at an arc from the referee. Says, get back, and I went, what? And he says, get back, and everyone's jostling. I said, look, we're equidistant. The wall, the referee, the guy's taking it. I went, equidistant. And I go, and it happened all the time. You just look at you as if to say, no, but that's a perfectly reasonable word, equidistant.
Bloody words and the trouble they get you into.
You don't think it's that weird.
Your dictionary, yeah.
So sometimes the words are interesting. We all love words, and I love writing, and still do a lot of writing. And quite often, I change my language and my accent for where I'm working. Mm-hmm. There's no point in me doing world service and using my Glasgow accent. You're wasting your time, mate. You're not going to understand.
Again, it would be quite nice to be understood if I'm on there.
So the idea is, so you're not being passionate, you're just cleaning the voice up, and so you do that now and again. But sometimes, over the years with football, you had to do that with language as well.
Well, let's test your language now. And let's do a trick that we tried with.
There's only one person whose face I don't want to see coming here if it's a face, but carry on.
No, there's no faces at the moment. I'm just offering our companions the chance to visually represent what we've just talked about. Before we went and sat down with Chris Waddle, we had a big long. It may seem that we'd never work on this and think about it, but before we went to see Chris up in Sheffield, we all talked about this idea that we love hearing a person's skills worked out, unpacked, described, because, as we didn't have your talents, and therefore if you get a chance to ask somebody to explain it, it's a privilege. But often, as you know, people who've been in your position don't quite know how they do it, and we were struck by the build-up to a Damien Duff interview where he was excoriating about his own inability to teach young ones. As when he walked off the pitch, he was embarrassed, he was angry, and he's changing that, but he was just embarrassed at. So he said, will we ask Chris about what he could do as an exciting, talented, wide player or creative player? So we sat down and we said, look, how did you do it? And he just, and I imagine you can do something similar about your own skills, but it does interest me when you're in a one-on-one repeatedly, which you are, whether you consider yourself a 10 or a striker or a winger. Really often, and before we recorded, you talked about one of the one-on-one battles in your life against a diminutive, quick Spaniard. What did you do? How much did you think about it? How much did you analyse? How much of it was about, physiology? Try and tell us a little bit about what made you special with the ball at your feet.
I'm going to really disappoint you. And I always disappoint people when I tell them about it. It was utterly worked out, totally worked out. People always say the phrase, "Oh, you were naturally gifted." None, I'm afraid. It was all worked, everything. From the age of about 3 or 4, my dad was a coach, and he used to take me down to watch Celtic training. Used to be able to go Barrowfield. Yeah, used to be able to go and watch. My dad read all the coaching books from Herrera onwards.
Gosh.
My dad would take me out every single day, and we would work on techniques every single day of my life. So after work, my dad came on a long work at the railways, where he worked, and 5 o'clock I'd be there, boots on, out. We'll do an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. and we would work on all these different methodologies. From Stanley Matthews used to do the one with the sticks. So every single one. Then we go and watch, say, Celtic play. Now, it was a very fortunate time. This was the end of the Lisbon Lions and the start of the quality streak. So you're seeing Jinky and you're seeing Lennox and Auld, but you're also seeing Kenny and Louis Macari and David Hay. What a player. And McGrain. And if any of them done a trick, I saw it, and we'd go and work it, and I'd get it, and I'd learn it. So I'd learn every single trick I'd ever see. Now this is before the time of videos and lots of games on TV. So every single one of them was worked and analysed and developed, and there was very few that you couldn't do after a while. But then it was to put them into a game at the right time. But because you'd done the infamous 10,000 hours, which I had done by a very, very, very early age with this technical stuff, it was just there.
Why did you grimace when you said that 10,000 hours?
Because I know the history of that, and it wasn't Gladwell that came up with it originally, it was another man that came up with it originally, and 10,000 hours is a pat expression, but in actual fact, put that amount of time and effort into anything, you will become natural and become second nature. 10,000, it's almost
it becomes automatic.
It's totally automatic. I can give you a great example of it. There's a particular trick that I had, and I learned it off a couple of players. There was a player at Rangers used to centre forward recently who was brilliant, Michael Moles.
Oh yeah, the Dutchman, yeah.
He had this trick. And I used to use this trick all the time, but Michael used to do it as well as anyone I'd ever seen. It was a wait, play behind you, wait for him to come over your shoulder. Anywhere, either shoulder, doesn't matter. You better if he's taller than you. As soon as he's over your shoulder, I'm gone. I know I've beaten you. And I'm beyond you already. I'm already thinking what I'm going to do next, because I am going to drag you.
Lean forward and corkscrew.
And corkscrew, right?
Yeah.
So, and twist. And it's a special twist that damages your inguinal ligament, in case you're interested.
That was my next question.
Yeah. And that was one of my favourites. I learned it very, very early on. I'd watched Moles was famously very good at, the trick I'm talking about, the specific
Does it have any relation to what Douglas used to do?
To some degree, yes. And that's
I know it's not
where
identical.
I got it. It's probably where I got the original, because he used to stick his backside and roll them that way, and I'd manipulated it. So that's one tiny little bit of it. So you're asking me what you do, you have one-on-one. I would always manipulate a situation to get the defender where I wanted them.
Yeah.
If you watch a tennis player like Andy, it's 3 shots before it.
Bring him to the situation that you want.
That's what you're doing. Now, when you're manipulating that, and you've got that, and you do that, and it works. And by the way, I know I'm going to be able to do it with you, because I know what you're going to do. I've already, in my mind, also checked round where everybody is. And by the time I get by that, I know that somebody's peeled off in the back place, I'm going to get there.
And they, presumably the more intelligent ones, kind of are doing the reverse to you. Like,
well, they were good.
He's getting him, here's the roll, I'll make my move.
Yeah. So that's just one of them.
Aldridge at Tranmere would have been one.
No, Dixon, he just did. They weren't as complicated. They just went in an area. Don't worry, you go there, I'll find you there. So they will go there. So you manipulate all of them, and you learn with people around you. So when you're on those days, I'm going to speak something. I'm going to say something. I'm going to couch it in such language that I'll try not. I will.
Just don't say equidistant.
No.
All right.
I watch. See, as you've mentioned before, I didn't like playing the wing. I never liked playing the wing. It's, you've only got that. I
think anybody with a brain could see that you were somebody who, if you allowed the team that was with you to compensate for you being able to go and find clever space, then you do special things. It looked like to me.
So that was it. And I had a couple of managers, only a couple of my entire 20-year career, that would allow that for only 3 or 4 years of my career. And it was so, freeing, and it was lovely. And then you look at it now and you watch Iniesta, and you watch Silva, and you go,
shit,
why wasn't I allowed to do that? Why didn't you trust me? And now and again when the managers did, it always seemed to work. But the bravery of the British game at the time wasn't there, because it was 4-4-2, it was 4-3-3. No one was playing between lines, no one was doing that.
Well, even when, not for you, but when between the lines was introduced as a concept, probably the first time I heard it spoken out loud, not in your industry maybe, was Rafa Benitez at Liverpool. And I remember in the media at least, and probably amongst fans, there was this general, what the fuck?
But it's so obvious when you're there.
Of course it is.
When you're playing it, you're thinking, well, that's what the space is.
Space.
And you watch it now and you think, I played 20 years, just about, and there was some players I kind of really admired for the technical abilities, not that many, but then I played in Britain at a time when there weren't many foreign players coming in. And then when I left the top level down there, the Premier League was just starting, it was big and physical, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was a bit rubbish. But it was, it was quite successful, but I didn't like it. I didn't like watching it or that. And then one player would be brought in, it might be Cantona, it might be Zola, and it was always somebody outside who knew how to do that. And you sit and go, God, I wish I'd have had more opportunities to do that. But it's my own fault. I only have myself to blame. I had opportunities to move abroad. I could have done it.
Yeah, you've spoken really interestingly about that, and therefore, maybe, listen, you obviously wouldn't mind talking about it, but it seemed to me that the Gala one was very, very simple.
Yeah.
It was a simple decision for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And the Paris Saint-Germain one, I would remind you that, I don't know, people ask you this all the time, so you mention your wife quite a lot, and her influence on you.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a big she, at least by throwing you the debate about the PSG thing, putting you back on your haunches about what are you doing here.
Yeah, somebody knows you. You know, they ask you a question, and times gone by, she asked me the question. Look, I was just about to leave Chelsea. I was going to go to PSG, and she just said, "Are you leaving because you're going to Paris, or are you going to play for a football team?" Damn it. And yes, of course I was. When Everton had come in as well just then, I knew that Everton was the right team. PSG weren't a big side at the time. They weren't doing great at the time, but I liked the concept of finding more about myself.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have said no to it.
You've never represented it that way, but I heard the sort of like a sort of clarion call to wisdom is how you've made it sound in previous.
And it is, and you have to listen to people who know you quite well, and now and again you do make judgments and decisions that are not always for the right reasons. At the time, when I was younger, the right reason would have been for the love and the joy of it. At that point in time, the right reason was to get the most out of your career.
Professionally, it was a good call.
And it was so unlike me, because every other decision that I generally ever made was not that. It was for the purity of the love.
Well, this may be a daft exercise. Let's leave Gala and Paris Saint-Germain aside. By fluke, you're not born in Easterhouse. By fluke, you're born in Oviedo. Maybe in 63, or maybe if you want to give it 20 years later. Pat Nevin's born in Spain. What would you have done, and where do you think you'd have ended up? What choices would you have made, across what you've seen of Spanish football?
I don't know, but I would love to feel that I could have fitted in, be it the Juan Mata style or Silva style. I often say to people, the day that David Silva walked onto a football field, first time I seen him play for Manchester City, and I thought. And I said, I was doing a live commentary, I said, he plays football the way I tried to. That was just the phrase. Because I'm not going to say, that's how I played. You can't say that because that's arrogant. And especially you see how good he is now. But no, he plays football the way I was trying to. That's what I was trying to do. Exactly what I was trying to do. Movement, the way you see things. People often, if you didn't see me much, you say, oh, you were just a dribbler. And I'm thinking, maybe 5% of my game, only 5%. And of course you had to adapt every single year because people would learn things and you had to be ready to readapt each time. But that was, looking at those guys now, I don't see it as jealousy. It's an admiration of sticking with it and sticking to it and doing the right things. And that's why I have a total love of Barca, which beats everything. I remember all these years watching Chelsea Barca games. Sometimes I'm doing commentary and people know my Chelsea background and I'm going, well, if you're going to get beat by anyone, guys, that's who you're going to get beat by, because I had this passion for it. I'm not saying it's the only way, but there was an art and there was a beauty and there was an intelligence and there was something bigger and better and wider. And football intelligence, it's something that you've watched enough Spanish football in your time, and I watch. If I go and play a game of football, 5 minutes into it, I can tell probably the capabilities of every single player around me, and I know who I'm not going to play a ball in front of, and I know that if I play a ball to you and make a run, it's not coming back, so I'm not even going to make that run. I'm wasting my time because you have that inherent knowledge. None of that, just about none of that, translates to people watching it. Really, most people watching it don't see it.
True.
And it comes across as arrogance sometimes. I hope it doesn't, but it's just when you have certain capabilities and slightly underused, but that would be I still didn't. I wasn't embittered by it because I still had 19 years pro. Played hundreds and 800 games. That's a lot of games. I had a fairly successful career, but
we both know that it's not arrogance. But sometimes when I hear you talk about Eden Hazard, which is generically a similar subject to this, you talk about ability, movement, intelligence, pitch management, and size. It's at least generically similar. I've heard mixed with the admiration a critical tone.
Yeah,
where you think, if that was me now, or if
no,
I was teaching him,
it's not me. No,
I was teaching him. I could teach him things that could elevate him in terms of his efficacy. Or
two things. First of all, I'm not just a million times better player than I ever was, and comfortable and happy and delighted to see it. Power stuff that he's got is amazing. His speed on the ball and movement of the ball is amazing. But I think he has got the capabilities to be the best player in the world. But for quite a long time he's not been the best player in the world.
No.
And I'm looking at him going, head in, come on, don't do that. Like the phrase people used to always say, he gets fouled more than anyone else. And I'm thinking, don't get fouled more than
you think he's got a culpability in that?
He did have for a while, yeah. And the reason being is, if you get the ball and you get it too deep, wasn't his fault all the time for being too deep because of some of the styles he was playing. But if you stop and you turn away, I'll hit you, I'll get you, and you won't get booked for it because it's just a wee nudge. If you get the ball first time and move directly at pace, you still might catch me, but you'll get booked and you won't do it again. It's how uncomplicated is that? And I'm watching Eden quite a few years ago going, don't do that, just turn and move and go. You don't actually need to think. You will think quicker than them once you're moving, because you are quicker and better than them. So it's a funny thing. A manager used to say to me many years ago as a kid, boys club football, he slaughtered me every single week. He made my life a misery. He bawled and shouted and screamed worse than anyone I'd ever come across. To times that I just wanted to walk away and not play. And at the end of the season, I get player of the season. What's that all about? He goes, I only shouted good players. What? I said, well, you're miles the best, so I want to get the best out of you. So I'm trying to get the best out of you. So if you see me say something about Eden Hazard, it's purely because he is the best and he can be better. I think this year he's shown it. So that's one side of it. So do that and move.
But like, if there's been an element of frustration in your admiration, there has to be an element of frustration, or there should have been, in my opinion, about why nobody at Chelsea over the years was picking that up and just edging him into these conclusions.
Maybe they have.
It's taken a long time to get through.
But why should they listen to an ex-aging footballer from a different era? Why should they? I mean, I don't expect
No, hold on. That idea about, like, I've collected the ball, I'm not going to look to get clattered or show the referee if I'm on the move and then they hold me down, that's a yellow card.
Yeah.
You bought yourself, let's say it's 20 minutes, you bought yourself another 60 minutes of freedom to do what you want, knowing he can't do that again. Therefore there's more likelihood of me assisting or scoring or coming close or entertaining the crowd if that's your objective.
But then that's my fault for I've never wanted to get into coaching. I've never wanted to get into management.
Is that a form rather than football club management? Could you have been attracted to one-on-one coaching?
Yes, very good point. Yes, I was. I was very interested in that, and I would like to have done it. And I was only asked ever once. Once I was asked by Hibs. John Collins was manager at the time, and he had a winger at the time. And I said, I can tell you what's wrong with me, mate. And John and I had a phenomenal understanding playing for Scotland.
Fellow guest on the series.
John. Do you know that?
Fascinating man.
Just the moment, I remember the first time we played in the same team zone with Scotland, we got the ball, and it was just a tiny little glance. I caught his little glance and went, that's it, we know. And the rest of the game was we know. And we know what we're going to do.
It's a powerful feeling, isn't
it? It very rarely happens in your life, be it in a football field, be it anywhere, where you have this lovely empathy with someone, an understanding of movement and things like that. And John was right up there. And another player who, again, has had a great career, but you stick him in any top team now, he'd be fine. He'd be as good. He'd be okay. He'd be absolutely good enough. And you're
not even just talking about his current state of fitness, which was also which also would have been
sickening. Sickening.
You hear that, John?
But no, it's top man. So he'd said, I'm going to have it, because I was very specific in certain areas where I could have helped us. And John was left the club about a week later. So I thought, but I've never, even when I was at, it's a great question. I was at Motherwell, chief executive and player, but we're bringing a kid through. And it's not me that's doing it, I'm chief exec, but if the manager, happened to be Bill Davis at the time, wants my information, I will give you it, but only if you ask me, because that's your job to manage. But I'm here if you want any advice, but I will never shove it. Now, Billy actually didn't ask for any advice at any point, so that's fine. I'll give you a job, you do it, mate. Better manager than I'd ever be, right? So that's fine. But one day, this young kid come on, called McFadden, and the ball's played to James McFadden down the line, and he's like 17, and he's got the ball, and he's done this very similar to the Moles trick I'm telling you. He's done twist, turn, move, and move down. Great cross, nearly scored from it. And he'd done a couple of really good things afterwards. So after the game, I said, like that turn, 10 minutes before the end, you done down the corner there. It was brilliant. If you've been working that long, what turn? I said, really? And I showed him what he'd done. He goes, did I? Wow. I said, well, it's pure natural from him. Purely natural. And I said, well, do you know what? Go and work in that. Because I did that. And if I get one-on-one with a guy anywhere in the pitch, preferably beside the corner flag or anywhere like that, the worst thing I'm getting is a foul. I'll get by him, penalty kick, foul, or corner. I'll get that. That's a given. You've just done it there. Go away and learn it, and make sure you know it to use it again. He just did what he did, and great. But that was a different mindset that I had. That you get good at something, you get exceptionally good at something, and know what you like. But there's another part of me that thinks, do you want to take the joy out of it though? Yeah. I don't know if I do. Remember I watching Kenny at Celtic coming through, and it was joyous. Yeah. It was fabulous. It was off the cuff. It was genius bits of things all over the game that I've been thinking, did you all see that? He just did there. It wasn't not the slewing at the top corner which he'd done when we're not in this regularity. Do something you think, do you see how technically he drove 3 players there and he played that ball over there which he hadn't looked at for the last 25 seconds but knew Danny would have gone. Then Kenny went to Liverpool and was less like that but was a better player, which so he actually moulded everything into a perfect kind of...
Became the right cog in the machine to make the machine work better.
And was a better player because all the right decisions and the taking the chances and the things that were madly off the cuff, they were reined right in. And he became a better footballer, some would say. I liked watching the earlier one better. But that's... people take that the wrong way. So...
No, I understand it completely. And I think part of why we're here is about joy. You know, if you come through at my age and you talk about the joy in the game and James McFadden, it turns out that you had to do special things to dilute my anger with you, which is...
Why have I got you angry?
It's when you became a European champion, one of only, 11 or 12 or 13 Scottish players who've been European champion. If you discard the squad, those who stripped off those days in 1982, when the under-18 side became champions. You, presumably at that stage, despite this marvellous relationship with your dad about maximising potential again and learning, which equates to an interview we had in this series with Peter Crouch, whose dad took him down the park before school at 6 or 7 in the morning to learn the curver method, which his dad thought would...
Fabulous.
And, I said to Crouch, you've given me so much. You're a very good footballer. I'll turn the television on to watch what you do. And therefore that and his is definitely still only partially systematic and automatic what you learn, because in everybody there's a little bit of the mischief and the invention on top of the automatics, whether that be you or Iniesta or Xavi or whatever it might be in your 10,000 or 20,000 hours. But I'm imagining that you were slightly more of an instinctive, slightly less of a systematic player when you become European champion in 82, maybe simply because you're younger.
Yeah, and you're learning as well, and you learned the things that happened that worked 90% of the times and the things that only worked 30% of the times, and you slowly but surely just up the 30s and you become more like that. And also there are coaches trying to coach it out of you, and you're fighting against that. And there's so many people saying, I had one coach who said to me when I was at Chelsea, take more than 2 touches and I'm going to substitute you. another coach who said to me, just pass it. You'll notice the ball travels more quickly when it's passed than when you run with it. I was like, yes, but that ball doesn't drag 4 players out of position. And they wouldn't get that. So the instinctive stuff still is there, because you manipulate all the situations, and then the situation changes. That's when the instinct comes in. That's when you need it. But that's fiction. And again, I'm talking to someone who knows this as well as anyone, because you've watched enough Spanish football. You will see that with players who do that, and they want it to open up. They want all the kind of... It's like when you play chess. If you play a mad move, and then suddenly the board's gone. If you're comfortable on that board, like everybody else isn't, because they don't know what's just happened.
Those of you with quicker feet, quicker brains, quicker eyes, quicker peripheral vision will exploit.
Watching the game, did you watch the Israel-Scotland game the other night?
I was doing other things.
So, Israel scored the first goal, the equaliser, and the ball's been played through, and everyone's talking about the play through. I'm looking at it thinking, why is it people played that ball? There was a ball on the left-hand side where Scotland hadn't followed the runner, which any decent Spanish player of any ability would have found that player. Not maybe, would have. They would have. But he found somebody else and they scored. But I'm thinking, that was so the wrong pass. And that side of it, being able to see the people that can do that all the time, and that's the kind of joy of it. And I'm seeing more people doing that now than I ever seen in my entire life, and it's great, but they just don't happen to be British.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Yeah, because you're watching more widely. But even
No, they'll come over here.
Yeah, when I left the Premier League, I was watching even Benito Carbone's, and Zola was still in his pomp. And I'm not convinced the Premier League is important, quite as exciting. The elite players now that play like that, they can bring. No,
I agree with you that they're not all there, but you go and look at what's the Chelsea team.
What about Hudson-Odoi?
He's seen bits of him.
He's got things.
Lots of pace, and definitely decision making is just decision making. I often watch players come through, and I'm kind of dismissive isn't the right word, but Chelsea develop loads and loads and loads and loads of young players. And they often talk about them on Chelsea TV, and they'll say, why are we not getting them through? Why are they not getting first team? Well, because they're not good enough. You don't need to be good enough to play for Chelsea now. You need to be one of the best players in the world now. That's what you need to be, right? So you need to be good enough. It's not more complicated. It's not about farming out here or not getting a chance. Go out, get a chance, playing with Vitesse or whoever it is. You will get enough games going around, and you will find out how good you're going to get. They've given you a brilliant backing. So like the Odoi, another classic example, and I've watched a lot coming through, and I've not thought, yeah, they're good. He'll be a good pro. Yeah, he'll be a good pro, and he'll even be a Premier League player. And seen lots of them. I've not seen any that I've thought, well, he's a Chelsea player. I've not thought. Tammy might have a chance. And certainly Mount looks like a good player as well. Have a chance. Maybe the one that excites me more than anyone else is Ampadu. And Ampadu's just. He will be a top footballer. Right. He will be 100%, but I don't know who for.
Where
I'd like it to be Chelsea.
That's maybe beyond his absolute control.
He might be good enough to be a starter for Chelsea as time goes by. He might be. He's only young now. In 3 years' time, we'll find out. And it all comes down to that one thing, which is back to the question you're asking: decision making. The final decision making is what it's all about, and it's back to that point you make. When the ball comes through and you're running through it in a kind of 10 position, and you've got certain players on the ball, you're thinking, oh, make that pass. When it's Kevin De Bruyne, you've not even thought, make that pass, because that pass has been made, and it's pinged in there. And you've seen it, you've watched. How many times did you watch Xavi in the
It's just an education. It's the reason I went there, and it happened to be the right era. I could have gone there hoping to see that, and any other era I would have seen things that were vaguely similar, but I just lucked out in that it was the right era, and it was an education.
And it's a joy. You sit and watch and go, he's going to play that. Ping! And it goes, and it's played at the right time, it's played at the right pace, it's played right to the player's right foot, and everyone thinks, oh, that's an easy thing to do.
I also learned what you've explained I could never have done, but I learned watching them pull teams into a position where you're like, okay, I see what's going to happen next, because you see it over and over and over again. I dangled it for you, and I don't know if you don't want to go there, but you are a European champion. And for a nation like ours, that's quite a big boast, given that we've never done it before or since, and then apart from the little flurry of publicity around it, everybody seemed to have forgotten it. Whereas it's an extraordinary achievement. And you also went there thinking there was no point we weren't going to win, so you'd definitely be back for your exams in time.
I was back, yeah. Flew back. The game we played that night, we flew back in the morning, early morning flight, and I was in time for the exam in the afternoon.
The game being against Czechs,
yeah,
in the final.
We beat them 3-1.
And you were the player of the tournament was the thing that I was trying to get at in terms you did things that stood out so much that you were voted player of the tournament in the only European tournament Scotland as a nation has ever won.
Well, okay, maybe part of the reason why I don't go on about it that much, other than in a self-deprecating way, is because if you're player of that tournament, well, you might have noticed that Marco van Basten also played in that tournament and he did a wee bit better than me. So maybe I underperformed from then on in. So maybe that's another way of looking at it. I should have done a bit better.
That deduction.
Here, try another one. Here's another. I'm trying to take you away from it slightly because it was lovely and it was really nice. I was slightly more concerned about the exam the next day. I hadn't even decided if I wanted to be a footballer. In fact, I wasn't. I was just doing it for the love of it. So Chelsea tried to buy me and I said no. So I stayed another year at Clyde, I hadn't told the girl I was going out with that I was playing football, which was a bit of a mistake because it was in back page headlines and pictures. So
that you were playing football in Finland?
And Finland. I said I was away studying, which was maybe not a great idea.
Studying Finnish and tactics.
So, a lot of those things, but I thought of something else recently. Again, I want to take this somewhere else, but you'll understand why. I was talking to somebody else about Cruyff the other day, and the argument that is he the most important person in football in the last 100 years? Right, probably you, right? So, and I would agree, right? And lots of people, and it's a great argument, and I may well have heard it first from you, right? But I remember thinking, absolutely, because of what he's done and the effect and everything. If you don't need, somebody said to me the other day, you ever play against Cruyff or any of his teams? And I think, you don't actually need to play against one of his teams he's managing. You need to play against the people he's manipulated, and then you understand what it was kind of about. And he completely and utterly changed everything, which made me think back to, so where did it start with Cruyff? 71, 72, 73, Ajax, champions. Look 3 years before that. Who were the champions of Europe? Who were 67 Celtic. 70 Celtic European Cup final.
Feyenoord.
Rangers were in
72 in Camp Nou.
We were there. And they were there. Look what happened. They went there and we didn't.
Yeah.
Now we've got populations are not massively different.
No.
But
our growth was stunted.
Our growth became stunted for a reason. Now it's it's a big look back, and it may well be because of one guy, Michels, as you know, and then Cruyff and all the rest of it. But we never stood forward. We never went forward to the level we should have done. Now that's me saying to you, well, we won that European Youth thing, great, but we never won anything after it. So they're not great at all. And there is always that bit in you that if you can do it for the love of it, but you quite like 1 and 2 and maximising your potential as ever. Did we? Probably not. And we should have done. Now, was it those players, or was it the coaching? It could be a multitude of things which I couldn't tell you. Did we not have the one leader we needed, and a Cruyff or whatever who adapted it? I don't know. And maybe you just needed the luck at the time.
It so happened in this series, Pat, that Walter Smith, one of our guests, referred back to Andy Roxburgh saying at the time, and I would have to admit I had pretty mixed feelings about the dealings I've had with Andy Roxburgh over the years, but Walter was crystal clear in saying that at that very time that you guys were winning that tournament, he was loudly warning in the SFA, we're screwing things up. The chain of talent, the chain of winning mentality is ending, and that is quite far-sighted to be saying at a time when it looks that everything is golden.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely right. Andy, they used to call me Andy's son a lot of the time. Andy was so great with me. He used to make these videos of skills and things, and I was always the guy who was doing them all, showing them all. And Andy loved the concept of street football and the skill side of it, and he really tried to promote as much as possible and give me lots of opportunities. But I always used to think that when it came to the big games, we'd go defensive. I remember the particular game we played, Euro 92, you might remember. The Dutch, we played against the Dutch now. To be fair, they had not a bad team, and Rijkaard and Gullit and Van Basten. Was it Van Basten? Anyway, they had a brilliant team. Completely fair. And they beat us 1-0, but we were incredibly defensive. And I remember sitting on the bench thinking, why don't we just have a go at them? Why don't we just have a go? And then the next game we played Germany. And again we were kind of defensive. And Andy was the manager. I'm thinking, we're pretty good. Just let us go. You know. And I was like, I'm thinking, well, they're the manager. They must know. They, you know. Anyway, 2-0 down at half time. Roxy comes in and goes, right, just go at them. Just let us. Just went go. We battered them. We absolutely battered them. We couldn't get a goal, but we destroyed that German team. And then the next game we just said, yeah, go for it again, and we beat CIS 3-3. And you just thought, we didn't do that often enough. So Andy, yes, ideas in the right place. Seen a lot of things and knew a lot of things that were going to happen, and I had massive admiration and great friendship with him as well. But there was always one wee bit, and Bryn the same, because Craig brought me in to Clyde when I was a kid. But I always thought,
for all your vision,
let us go for them.
You have to have big bollocks. You have to, and you talked about how rarely people trusted you to play in between the lines, or just say, yeah, I trust your intelligence and your ability to do.
I mean, not just mine. There was other players.
I know. I know we're talking generically. In a recent interview that we had in this series, we sat down with Julian Lescott, and I want to throw one of his ideas at you. His acknowledgement of what music is to him is much more tentative, but it's just as passionate. And he said something that was like almost an antidote. So many times you talk to top footballers who are like, there's a chasm now between what I was doing and where I might be going, and I'm a little bit lost. And he talked about the power of music when he DJs. He said, when I put a song on in whatever format and people dance, it's the closest thing to the sensation of winning a match, scoring a goal, lifting a trophy. And it was like quite therapeutic to him. It was like, what's the feeling like? Because if people don't know you or simply listen to you talking about music, they might be led to think that the only joy, the biggest joy, is actually you hearing your own music as you play it as a DJ at Scared to Dance or whatever it might be. What's the feeling like when people move to the beat? So
surprising seeing people know me as a Joy Division fan. Actually moving to the beat with some of Joy Division songs. No, I play a lot of new music as well. But in actual fact, it's not that nothing like Julian's reaction to it. It's much more Peely kind of reaction. It's a, hey, I love this. I want to share this. That's it. That's it. It's not more. If you happen to be dancing, it's good. A girl came up. I was DJing last time down in Dalston, and she said, she asked for something, and I said, I've not got that, but I've got something else by that. I'll play that next because it would fit in with where I was going. And she goes, look at that. They're up in the stage. They're dancing. They're going mad. You're doing that. And I went, no, I'm not. It's the music. It's not me. It's the music. I didn't make the music. I just put it there on that. So it wasn't that personal for me. I do it to share the music. Help out. I probably do 1 in 10 gigs at Mast. So I've not got time to do it all the time. But if it's nice people, I meet nice people.
It's a good reason for anything.
Great, that's it. It's not more complicated. You may notice that nothing of it has got to do with fame. Nothing of it has got to do with celebrity. Absolutely antithesis. If I'm ever asked to do a bigger one, I tend to turn it down.
Unless it was enjoyable.
Unless it was a Bowley one. The Bowley one was great a few years back. That was fabulous. It was, a lot of bands that I like Belle Sebastian and Franz Ferdinand. And
it was a tribute.
Oh, Bowley was. It's Belle Sebastian put on a kind of thing at one of the Butlins camps. Oh wow! So all these bands, they did it a couple of times. They called it Bowley because of Bowley haircuts, and a lot of the bands that he liked were playing, but they needed someone. They needed a DJ at the end of it, and so I was asked to do DJ the last night. So I went with my mate Tam, and I DJ'd that last night. It was absolutely brilliant. The best part of it, so it was all kind of like-minded, into these sort of bands, kind of people together. But anytime and everyone came in. There was 3 different DJs in 3 different halls, but everyone came in when I was doing. Mostly, I think, because the bands had come into mine to dance. Every time one of the guys, let's say for Franz Ferdinand went up, I put a Franz Ferdinand track on and they ran off again. It was just brilliant fun doing that. So that's a slightly bigger one that I would do now and again. But yeah, just do it for the fun of it and sharing music.
We mentioned somebody at the beginning of this, or I started it, the idiot that I am. That, as you say, some people won't have heard of because it's now a while since John Peel died. Yeah. He also wasn't, by definition, he wasn't necessarily to everybody's taste. Yeah. And he challenged you. Mm-hmm. You talked about wanting to share and educate, whatever. It wasn't always an easy listen to Peel because he was always, maybe a little bit like I felt about Joe Strummer, he was always out there trying to find out what might be new, what do I like, and tell people a little bit. Tell people a little about being close to John Peel, what kind of man he was.
Well, first of all, it was an education listening to Peel show. So I mean, I'd always tape the shows, then listen to the headphones the next day, and I'd listen to them live, but then the next day, to give you a chance to hear a song 2 or 3 times, and you might listen to the whole show and like 3 songs. That was okay. That was enough. Because those 3 songs would be brilliant and would be totally different and would be fabulous, and you would learn something as well. Getting to know him was extraordinary because I'm not much a hero worshipper, really. I admire people. There's people who I admire who have no interest in meeting. Mm-hmm. I like their skill, I like their talent, I like sometimes the things they say. But Peely was different. He was like, because he felt your mate, you'd like to meet him, so I decided I wanted to meet him. So I was writing for the Chelsea newspaper, the British News, music hall. I was 19 or 20 at the time, and I interviewed John. I wanted to interview John. He said no first, and then I wrote a letter, and he said, my team Chelsea are playing your team Liverpool, and I'm playing. And he went, right, so it's you, okay. So we came along, we met, and we got on just really well, and as he would with anyone. Phenomenally shy. I mean, really painfully shy most of the time. To the point where he couldn't really look at you a lot of the time. He'd look away until you really got to know you. And that was a kind of joy to see that he was doing it for the pure love of it as well. So it wasn't an act, it wasn't fake, it was he did the music because he loved it and he loved learning, he loved sharing. And it's exactly those of us who were into that felt. So complete kindred spirit. There were so many lovely nights, like going for curries after shows. So I'd go on the show with him sometimes, but he'd never told anyone. I'd be sitting in and we'd be writing down the names of the band, the album, the label, so they could get their 50p or 10p, or I think it was like 10p or whatever it is at the time, for being played live on the radio. And there was a great bunch of people there, and all kind of students, and just you use a different word now. What's the word you use now for people who work for nothing? Interns. They call it interns. But it wasn't like that.
They'd spent a lot of time in America in the early 60s, and intern was a concept there.
Well, he didn't ask them in; they'd just come in. So, and they were a great bunch, and some of them are still great friends of mine. To
Mark Ratcliffe worked there, and John, whose producer, died, I think maybe even before. Yeah. John, I forget, John Walters.
Yeah, Walters was always there as well. I mean, Walters was paid part of it. Brilliant, interesting bunch of people. You learn so much. Disagreed sometimes, lots of things. Yeah. That's fine. Once, I fell out with me once, really quite badly, because he found out I was going out with a girl that he was unimpressed by me going out with her. But it was a bit of a laugh. Don't go there. And then there was another one, which was brilliant. I phoned him up. Went to Everton. We got to the cup final, and I phoned him up and said, well, do you want to come along? Because you get 20 tickets, and I was going with my family and best friends. So I said, just you and Sheila want to come? And I went, oh yeah, definitely. Of course, John turns up, bedecked in red, head to foot, for Everton playing, which was lovely. It was good, and it was a sad day as well, because it was the house for a year. But the last time we seen was one of the most fabulous times.
I've already said before we taped that you really impacted me when you talked about your need to be at his birthday party that year.
Yeah, no, it was an extraordinary thing. I can't explain that, and it's not an act. It's not. My wife will tell you exactly what happened. She phoned and said, "Do you want to come to the party?" He had a big party every 5 years, and I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." And I went off the phone. My wife said, "You're you've organised this golf tournament, you're doing this charity on the Saturday and the Sunday, and you've just said you're going to a party in Suffolk on Saturday night, and yeah, I'm going to be there, I have to be there. And she went, don't be stupid. And I said, well, no, I have to be there. I'm not minted, I'm not kind of flash, but if I need to hire a plane, I'm going to get there.
It was that intense.
Yeah, I just needed to be there. Now, I quite fancied going anyway, but I'd missed plenty. I'd been asked times before and I hadn't gone.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't make it. I was busy. I was working. So anyway, I organised it, and so I could organise it that I could play the game of golf and finish about 1 o'clock. Be first off, get to the airport, fly to Stansted, have a car waiting for me. The car would. By the way, it was a BA plane, it wasn't at this point. Flew up, got the driver to drive me across. Got there in time, 8 o'clock. John was there, everyone was there that I had wanted to meet. The band that was playing was Cameron Scourman, my favourite band at the time. Met the most fabulous people. John was in the best form I've ever known him in his entire life. The nervousness wasn't there. Of course, he was at home. It was at Peel Acres. And then 12 o'clock, I jumped in the cab, which was still waiting. Drove back, 2 or 3 hours sleep. 6 a.m. flight. I was on the tee at 9 o'clock. No one any the wiser. And I just thought it was a brilliant time, brilliant night, and it was just so joyous. And then John was dead weeks later, gone over to Peru, had a heart attack and died. And it was, and we've talked about this before, but I mean, how many people affect you when I had to go out, I had to, when it came on, I heard it in the news, it came on. No, it didn't. Paget, my friend, who was one of the people we would sit in with, she texted me and she said, John's gone, and she just said, John's gone. I didn't need any more, it could have been anything at all, but I just knew it was from P. I went, and the wife was like, so what's wrong? I went, just have to go. And I just walked out of the house, jumped in the car and drove away, and I was just couldn't get my head around it. I was so upset. And it wasn't because it wasn't actually because it was a friend. It wasn't that. It's because it was John Peel. It's a strange thing to say. It's because it was so important of what he'd done for me, people like me, giving us a belief in what to be different. Yeah. Be strong enough to be different.
That's why I raised this again, because you've mentioned the anecdote before, but I know what it means to me. I'm a little bit sort of feeling a bit emotional hearing you talking about it now, because when you lose something like that, it does feel a little bit like the world, your world, is a little bit less good, a little bit less interesting, but also somebody who's been influential and taught you things that, what life's for, whether it's subliminally or not. People like that are so rare, and then when they go a little bit too quickly, it does really, it leaves a terrible damage to you, I think.
It is.
In my instance, that's what I felt.
If it's family, you can get it. It makes sense. Or very, 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 very close friends you've known all your life and all that. But it was John for who he was and what he represented and what he did for people. Now, again, like most people, he wouldn't have been perfect. He wasn't perfect. No. I wouldn't say that for a second. And neither would he. But all the little bits of the personality, like even just the shyness, to be so adored, but to never take any of that on board, to mean nothing. Like the amount of people who come up to me and ask, go see an autograph. Who does autographs? Or selfie that.
Selfies.
And people go,
there's one coming.
And people go, isn't that great? Isn't that great? And you think, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's good, like, I'm happy, yeah, good, but I'm only a guy. John was like that. You're only a person. People don't do it because they're in awe of you anyway anymore. It never really was. But there was always a slight discomfort, and I knew John had that slight discomfort as well, of I'm not really worthy of a picture. And to do what he did, and not to do it for purely selfish reasons, I just think that's a brilliant way to be, and it's a kind of lost way to be. I don't see that many people, and in our society, it's kind of laughed at and frowned upon. Why don't you tweet, Pat? Well, why? I could do, but the reason would be to become more famous, or I don't know. I don't really want it. What I'm doing is fine. What I'm doing is okay. Also, I don't like the trolls.
Pat Nevin, Bet365, who love us and sponsor us, have said to us that they need to know from you. What's the greatest goal you ever scored?
Cool, I never think of it in those terms. Remember going to... Right, okay, best one. Often said by Clyde supporters. Playing for Clyde against... somebody, Stenhousemuir, couldn't be, something like that. No, maybe, no, it was Alloa. I was my second season there. It was icy. It was rock hard. I hadn't played well because it's not my conditions. And it was really horrible, rutted ground. And with 10 minutes to go, I was beginning to get really infuriated because I knew that Celtic manager Billy McNeil had come to see me playing. And I thought, I've got to do something. So I got the ball out wide and went in a total mazy. Took it through. And many Clyde fans tell me it was every player in their team, but it was quite a lot of players, including the goalkeeper, stopped on the line and then backheeled it in. And ran up towards the halfway line to look up where Billy was. Gone. He never saw it. And that was probably, it's probably the best. And one of the great things about it, it was never on camera, so I can lie about it and say it was better than it was.
Who's the best footballer Bet365 want to know? The best footballer that you've ever played alongside?
I change the answer to this all the time. I've been asked this quite a few times. I mean, look at me, I played with Kenny at Scotland, which is a strange thing to watch somebody growing up and then play alongside him. So Kenny was fabulous. I mentioned a very short time Peter Beardsley. It was one of those players that would walk into any of the great teams now. But the one I often use is one because it would have been the best player. So it's a bit like me and my favourite bands. They would have been the greatest. But Norman Whiteside, when I was at Everton, and I played with him for 2 years, and you have to play with somebody and then you realise, oh my God, I've not seen you giving the ball away yet, and I've been playing with you for 2 years in games and training, and nobody get the ball off you either. And I'm thinking, that's just wow. You couldn't tackle him. His body position was
very strong man, also
unbelievably strong. Slow, everyone said, and then he told me one day why he was. It's because he had an operation when he was 17 that went wrong, which was a very... By the way, I'm not telling you your job, do Norman. It's fabulous.
Wonderful.
Fabulous.
Wonderful.
I mean, totally unexpected, right?
Okay.
But Norman apparently was a sprinter to top level before that in Ireland when he was a kid. So you had that as well. So you put him at centre back, centre midfield, centre forward, he'd have been one of the best players, if not the best player in your team. And everybody that played with him, like Strachan and people like that, they always say he would have been the greatest. He would have been one of the best you'll ever seen.
Yeah.
But by the time he was 23, he'd gone. The knee had gone. He was playing in one leg, and he still scored. I think it was nearly 20 goals that season. One leg. The guy is totally misunderstood, hugely intelligent. We've talked right at the start about John Terry, about people who are misrepresented, and totally and utterly. He is even more so than JT.
That's one of the most striking and convincing answers we've ever had on this series, ever, seriously.
Have a go at him, honestly.
And because, Norman clearly, when you see him coming through in the World Cup that meant so much to me because it's where I went and discovered the world, he's 16. And beating Spain with Northern Ireland, playing with a team of men, playing on a 10-man team because Maradona he's sent off and holding his own then, and I hadn't extrapolated that maybe several years later he may still be that good.
I'm not going to tell you the story of the injury. One day ask him. I'm not going to steal your question, right? But one of the questions people often ask, what's the most important moment in your career? And my important moment, it's never ever changed. I mean, it was early days, first season at Chelsea, and I used to walk home after a game, lived up in Nelscote, and I walked out and I played well and I'd scored again, and I walked out, and as I walked up the road, this old guy just walked in beside me. He goes, "You're Nevin, aren't you?" Yes. Came out to see you play today. I don't get out much anymore. I really wanted to see you play. I hear you're a talented player. And you entertained me today. It was great. I went, "Oh, great." And I went to speak to him and he just walked away. And I thought, that's why I play football. Yeah. That is utterly and completely why I play football. Because he's come out. I've told a million stories. Maybe he was on his own, he'd lost his wife or whatever. But I got him out. He'd done that. He'd had that time, that moment, and I'd helped give him it. And I thought, didn't get any better than that.
And it stayed with you all this time.
And it always made. I never really had to. I always give 100% every game. I'm a really, really hard working guy. In my football games is always hard working for the entirety of each game. And wouldn't be because my dad never missed many games, because he always came to all the games. But even without my dad as long as I knew that guy,
Yeah.
or somebody other guy that I'll never meet gets that moment. So you don't know about this podcast. You don't know who might touch that you say something about
I
somebody.
believe
say
that.
something.
I believe that.
And it is there. And it's a lovely moment when it happens, and it comes back to you, and you think, that's lovely. And it's not selfish. It's just a great share.
Last one from our lovely sponsors, Bet365, and it's a good one. Will Chelsea win the title during Maurizio Sarri's time at the club? In fact, sorry Bet365, I'm going to change that. Will Chelsea win the title during Maurizio Sarri's first season at the club? Brackets, Graham's part of this. And are you enjoying the brand of football?
Right. Number one, you either expect a yes or a no there. And you're going to get the weirdest answer. Don't care. Absolutely don't care. Because it's so lovely to watch, and it's so enjoyable to watch. I want them to be successful with my team. You know, Hibs is my team in Scotland now, Chelsea is my team in England. But the way they're playing is so joyous. It's so lovely to watch. I was at a game recently, and Liverpool scored a late equaliser. Great goal, Sturridge, fantastic. And in times gone by, I would have walked out there because I was doing it, and I'd have got anger, fury. The place was buzzing.
Yeah.
The fans were like, "Oh, it wasn't that great." You've massive rivals in Liverpool.
Yeah.
An ex-player goes and smacks one in the top corner the last couple of minutes,
Yeah.
and you're
Should be
expecting
all tribal and angry and we've been robbed.
not there. How can you change an entire ethos of a club in 7 weeks, which is what he's done? By the way, it's extraordinary. It's absolutely extreme. That's to take nothing away what Josie done before and what Antonio done before. He has changed the concept.
So you're talking in footballistically, but also for a foreigner who's never worked in England before, with a disparate group of players, some of whom were disaffected. Yeah. So just in any work situation, to bring all those difficult elements together and to be producing some sort of symphony of football, because it's beautiful.
I'm really enjoying trying to analyse why at the moment, and it's been really good. I found out, because immediately you say, oh, the first game they play against Man City, and you think, all right, there's your problem there. Jorginho gets caught in the ball, you stop him, then it's all dead. And then you watch, well, Jorginho wouldn't have done that well for that long had he only had one trick in his book. And then you watch him a bit more, and you see that when they do one thing, he adapts it to do something else. And then you start thinking, oh my goodness, how many players, and I'd ask this of you, how many players can control a game that you've ever seen to the level he does? Now, there's very, very few that I can remember. Now, Iniesta, I think, could, clearly. Pirlo obviously could do that, control the tempo, but how many really can control an entire game?
No.
But he does.
Extremely few.
He does, and it's an extraordinary thing.
Stan had moments, Redondo had moments to the level you're talking about, maybe not so often, but
it's extraordinary.
And you're also only talking about the ultra elite.
Yeah, and to do it in the Premier League, and to do it in a different style, and to do it so quickly, and it might not last for, I don't know.
No.
But I've not seen. I'm very impressed by that. I love the fact that, and by the way, I didn't know how good Kovacic was either.
He's been but they Escondido, they hid him away from you because when he moved from Inter and when he was at Real Madrid the first time, you could see one, although he was played in an organising, defending role at Real Madrid, what he came as was somebody who really loved the movement between the middle of midfield and the attacking phase in the box, and he had it. And they kind of just squeezed the juice out of him, the life out of him, giving the wrong amount of time at the wrong times. But you knew, one, given his love of the ball and moving it, and also because Croats are usually pretty robust people, I knew there was something coming back, because I think he was going to rediscover his enjoyment of being a top quality footballer again.
Well, I'm sure you'll look out for it, but there was he done a technical thing, the game I watched about 3 weeks ago. I think it's very different from the players we were talking about before, the ones like Silva's and Matos and like that. But Cesc was playing in that central Jorginho role, and he was doing his version of it, which is very different from Jorginho, which Cesc, fabulous, beautiful player, one of the best passes I've ever seen of a ball, but he wasn't developing the space in the same way. But Kovacic was playing, and there was a moment where they were getting the ball from the back, and Kovacic did something, a bit of movement to get the ball, moved it again, and moved away, and the whole thing just opened up. And I spotted Cesc turn around and go, was that how you do it? And for Cesc to do that, for considering
that's a level.
That is some level,
and
for him to buy into it as much as he is. So In short, don't care. I'd like them to win it, but I don't care. I love watching them at the moment.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit cheesy here and saying, Pat Nevin, not only has this been a real joy, as much, I mean, my heart is bigger than it was when I came in, because we've talked about things that matter and that are joyful. And don't lean across and punch me now, you're not a violent man, but Pat, we've been picking apart the blues. So now, why don't we close on
There can be no other way to close.
picking the blues? I like that, picking apart the blues, picking the blues, no?
It'll do.
Pat, thank you for your generosity and your
Absolute
fun
pleasure.
and sharing all of that with us.
It's been my pleasure.
Brilliant.